Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Screen Society podcast, a podcast that covers all things TV, movies, and everything you get on your screen. I'm joined today by my favorite guest I ever have, and that is Jordan Wiegand of Supes and Sabers. He's on about 26 different podcasts with me at times. But
Yep.
Jordan, how you doing today?
Good. I was gonna say, am I the only guest so far? So I would have to be the favorite
Yes,
one, right?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that is why you are. You will be my favorite until we get anybody
Another
else
guest.
on.
Yeah, anybody
Yeah,
else.
anyone at this point, Jordan. Yeah. So I think we'll get into it right away, Jordan. I'm excited because we are talking one of my favorites, Superman, because, I've got a lot of history with superheroes. So I'm excited. I know you had some questions for me at first. So
Yeah.
we can kind of get into that. What's your, I know you were texting me like I had some things I wanted to talk to you about first. So what could it
Yeah, I got
possibly be,
bones to
Jordan?
pick with you, buddy.
Yes.
No, I was just gonna say, I guess there's a nice little opening for the listeners on what do you know about Superman? Like, how many Superman experiences have you had? Like, uh, what are you familiar with? Like, were you going in pretty cold on this? That's the kind of stuff I think is pretty important to know.
Jordan, I am as cold as Antarctica on this one.
Oh, okay.
Much like
Or
our
up
background
here.
here.
I know, it feels like -2 up here right now.
That's well, it's 20 here in Florida, so but
That's
no,
true.
Jordan, I'm going in as cold as I wouldn't say as cold as possible. I did tell you I know a few things about Superman and the
Mhm.
lore of the Cape, but I don't know a whole lot. So you're gonna have to give me a little bit of background here on some of this stuff. I know that you're more than capable of that. But yeah, no, I know Lex Luthor. I know Crypto. I know Lois Lane. Uh, Kryptonite, but that's about it. Jordan, Smallville, I know that one too. But
Do you know
nothing
crypto
else beyond
before
that.
this or
Yes, I did know
okay.
Crypto before this. Mostly because I always thought he was adorable, and I was like, "Who is that?" And I didn't know who he was attached to, and I'd seen him in some kind of comic or something like that, and I was like, "Obviously, this has got to be Superman, right?" So I looked him up, and he is connected to Superman, obviously. And I have questions about him
Yeah.
later on, because uh, we do get not a nod. We get a character at the end of the movie who I'm very curious about, and her interaction with Crypto. But I know we'll get
Yeah,
to
I
that
have
one.
some notes there
Um,
too, yeah.
so you have to fill me in. But yeah, we're revisiting Superman because I'd never seen it and I'd heard a lot about it. I know that there is a lot of hype around this movie, Jordan, because of
Mhm.
what it's began. So, for the listeners that are jumping into this, I know a lot of them are probably Superman fans at this point, or have seen the movie a ton of times because we're doing this pretty late in
7
the
months
game. I
later,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's been
6 months
quite
later.
some time since it first came out. But Jordan, what is your background with Superman? Like, where does he rank among your favorites, and what do you have as far as history with him?
Yeah, big Superman fan. I grew up, obviously a Spider-Man, Batman, X-Man fan, uh, but, uh there was an animated universe called the DC animated universe that started with Batman the animated series and continued into Batman Beyond, and Superman the animated series, and then eventually Justice League. But so obviously, I grew up watching Superman the animated series. I probably saw the Christopher Reeve Superman movies at some point as a kid. But what really kicked it off was Smallville. Probably so Smallville aired in 2001. I don't think I saw it right away. Obviously, I would have been 10. I probably saw it a couple years later when it was in syndication on what used to be known as ABC Family. Now is Freeform, but it would run on ABC Family after Dukes of Hazard. So it'd be Dukes of Hazard for like an hour, and then it would be Smallville. And the guy who is one of the Duke brothers also plays his dad in Smallville. So it's kind of like a Jonathan Snyder, like 2 hour block.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where like you stumble upon the show and you're like, well, obviously I know Smallville's where he grew up, so you know it's a Superman show. You see Lex Luthor, you're like, okay, this is interesting. But it's like in that show, Lex and Clark start off as friends, so you're kind of watching to see where that's going to deteriorate, and you're also
Mhm.
seeing gain new powers, uh, and get closer and closer to becoming Superman. And um, the people who wrote that actually wrote Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire movie. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of similarities I find between a character like Clark and Peter Parker, where they just want to do what's right, and when they have great power comes great responsibility, right? So I find Superman kind of has that sort of vibe as well, with needing to just do what is right, and even if it comes at the cost of his personal life, and getting in the way of relationships with Lois, or back in Smallville, Lana, and his friends and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I really started it, and then just have dove into the comics at some point as a kid, and uh, just he stands for what is all good and right. So I think that is something that the world really needs right now. And he's my number two. It's Spider-Man, then Superman as top heroes. So that's where he kind of sits.
I think I knew that, but I was like, I mean, I know Spider-Man, um, I know Spider-Man ranked really high for you. He's number 1 for me too. And I was like, I wondered, and I don't think I asked you this. I wondered if it was because they are, to me, they feel very similar,
Hmm.
in the way that they see the world as far as being an optimist, being somebody that wants to do right and wants people to do the right things and ultimately lead with their morals and their values. And I think it's
Hmm.
something that obviously those things are challenged in superhero movies, but like these two feel very Spider-Man and Superman feel very um I wouldn't say like what do you call it? Immune to the darkness, but like they definitely feel like people that rise up above it every time when given the
Yeah, yeah.
choice, and while challenged with it sometimes, it's usually by outside factors that it's challenged by. Even when the darkest things happen to Spider-Man and Superman, they tend to go the opposite direction and see it as a valuable lesson, and they also kinda have similar job like, they feel very
Yeah,
similar to me with
reporter,
the way that they're built.
newspaper,
Yeah,
photographer,
secret
reporter, right?
identities.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
with,
Daily
with good
Bugle, Daily
friends around
Planet.
them. Yes. With really good friends around them,
Yeah,
much like you are to me, but, like, it feels very, and I saw a bunch of so I was reading through, the criticisms because that's what I like to do is to read where
yeah.
people found flaws with it, Jordan, and I wanted to get your opinion on when this first came out and, like, what this mean like, first, I wanna see what your thoughts were when this first came out, like, when did you
And how
see
they've
it opening night and stuff like that? And then also, like, what did you feel was the reaction to it? Because I'm listening to this retroactive like, I'm listening to reactions from back then that are I mean, everybody I'm listening to, were head over heels for this
Mhm.
movie. Was it that same kind of impression you got from when it first came out?
It depends on the corner of the internet you're on, I think. So,
Yeah.
there were so I saw it opening night, not the Amazon. They had an Amazon preview screening, which was like the Tuesday before it released or the Monday before it released. I think it was Tuesday, but it was just IMAX showings. They were very expensive tickets, like $27 a ticket. I was not going to that, so I went to just the normal Thursday night opening preview. Um, at my local theater. I did get I did buy the premium seats though. So it was Ultra AV, which is like clearer image, better sound, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like an IMAX, but like not as big of a difference, I guess. It was my first movie seeing in a premium format, like on purpose. I wanted to see big blue on the big screen. So I did that, and then uh I walked out. I said I kept telling people I really liked it, didn't love it. Really liked it, didn't love it. In the sense of this always happens to me when I watch a movie for the first time. It kind of
Yeah.
feels weird for the first bit because you're like,
Yeah.
is this how I thought it was going to go? Is this, oh, that's a
Yep.
choice. That's a choice. And then the more I thought about it, and by the time I probably got to recording the podcast about it that we did on Supes and Sabers, um, I really ended up loving it. You know, some of my friends that fell in love with it right away. I know Ron, who wasn't big into Superman, has this in like his top 3 superhero movies of all time. Um, Chris really enjoyed it right off the bat, but I think it was like I had to sit with it a bit. You know, I had to sit with it, think about it, and the more I thought about it, the more I ended up loving it because of uh again, just kind of what it stands for and what it does. And then when the movie came out digitally, I did not buy it digitally because I like physical media. So I had to wait like an extra month, month and a half, something like that.
Yeah.
And but people on YouTube were doing their, reaction videos. Uh so I watched like so many of those the first week it hit digital and just got to see some of my favorite scenes again. And then when it came out on DVD, I was finally able, or I mean, yes, it technically came out on DVD. I have it on 4K Blu-ray, not DVD, but
Yeah.
I, put it on the PS5. It looked great on my TV, and I started just falling more and more in love with the movie to the point I've seen it probably about 6 times now. So
Well, that's good
I
though.
watched it.
Yeah.
I watched it on the 17th, and then I watched it again yesterday or 2 days ago for this. Um, so yeah, I really loved it. When you're talking about the rest of the internet, or like the general consensus, I would say like outside of the internet, this is a pretty well regarded movie. I had people that I know at work that know I'm a Superman fan. They're like, "Hey, did you see the new Superman movie?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
They're like, "Me too. I really liked it." I was like, "Great. Like that's perfect." And then, there were people that were upset obviously that the old universe had to die for this one to continue. So there are people upset that they didn't get more Henry Cavill. There's people upset
Yeah.
that for that kind of stuff. Some of those people have moved on and embraced this. Some of those people are still upset. But then there's also hardcore Superman fans that do not like some of the changes in this movie that we'll probably dive into. Um, and and that's their thoughts on that. So, I listened to
Yeah.
so many podcasts after this came out, and I would say
Right.
most liked it. If you look at the cinema score, I think that might be a B plus, but and then there were um good Rotten Tomatoes score, all that kind of stuff. So I think I would say most people like this, but there are, obviously people that uh
Yeah.
are
The
hardcore,
underbelly.
faithful, to
Yeah. Yeah.
what they think the mythos is.
Yeah. 83% on the tomato meter with 501 reviews, which is very solid score. 90% on
What's
the
the
popcorn meter.
That's what I was gonna say. What's the popcorn?
Yeah,
90? That's pretty
which
good.
is
Yeah.
yeah, 25,000 verified ratings, from fans of you and I alike. So it, uh, uh, everything that I had listened to, same kind of thing, and I think I saw this too. I went back and watched, like, first reactions to this, one from the Escape Pod, but, like, I forget what other one I'd watched. I'd watched a couple
Did
of
you watch
YouTube
Supes
videos
and
on there.
Sabers' first reaction to this?
I did yes, I did I did listen to you guys, um, and I do feel like, in your sentiment too in that episode too was like, and like you've said now is like, I liked it, I didn't, kind of love it, but now as I've watched it more and more, I've really grown fond to it, and like, I think it's the same thing because everything that I've listened to, the immediate reaction has been like, "Oh, I really liked it. I thought it was a good start, but I think it could have been better." And like, that's every movie. Um, so it's always funny when that's the critique is like, "Oh, it could have been better." Well, everything could be better. Like, of
Back to the
course,
Future
like,
is perfect. Yeah, I know. Right.
well, yeah. So never seen it, but yes, but like I do. I feel like this movie, the more and more I've looked at it now, I think the recency bias and also the recency hesitancy has kind of worn off, and it really does feel like a good start. And I wanted to ask you one more question on that. Like, are you excited that this is, I mean, James Gunn now he started this, and now the DCU is in its infancy and really starting to take shape. Are you excited about this being I mean, this is the equivalent, a lot of people are saying this is the equivalent of obviously like Iron Man. Like
Mhm.
this is their beginning. Are you excited about what's coming with DCU? Did you feel like it was needed like a course, not really course correction, but like taking it in a different way? Do you think like it's in good hands with James and co?
I do. I think that this was severely needed, for look, the DC brand was in the toilet when we're talking about movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when they were turning out good movies, people were burnt too much by what had come from, the reaction that people had to, like, Batman vs Superman and
Yeah.
Justice League and and Suicide Squad, that it is kind of tarnished the brand a bit when it was on a high after the Dark Knight trilogy, right? The Dark Knight trilogy comes out, everybody's like, DC's where it's at. And then Marvel kind of turns the tide with the MCU. It then DC kind of got the tide turned on them because they started getting bad reaction. Like at the one point, they were at the top of the like, I mean, the Nolan films were highly
Yeah.
regarded. They were
Right.
Oscar nominated stuff when you're
Yeah.
talking about like acting and all that kind of stuff.
Everybody was talking about that. That was zeitgeist with them. Like when
Yeah.
Dark
I
Knight and
mean,
Dark Knight
there's an
Rises were like
Office episode where 3 characters dress up as Heath Ledger's Joker. I mean,
right, yeah,
it was at an all-time high, but then, things were really turning, down where, again, like I said, even if they were making good movies, they weren't
yeah,
they weren't getting, and even this one, I feel like is a little hurt by what has come before. It ended up making like 600 million some, which is, I would say, good for like a starting movie, but,
mhm,
um people would think usually a Superman movie would be making more than that. But again, I think if you look at they had to work on a decade almost of movies that were just not well liked by casual
yeah,
audiences, by critics, by everybody except for hardcore fans, really. So they really had to
yeah,
turn that narrative around. I think this is a good start because I like what James did here in the sense of we don't need the origin. Everybody knows Superman's origin. We do not need to see it again. We've seen it in like 2 films, plenty of TV shows. We don't need to see it again. So, kind of being able to start and hit the ground running with this world already existing, with Superman already existing, and just know that all of these characters already exist and we can just check in on them at any time feels good. Because if we had to do like a Superman movie and then wait for the sequel to do like another Superman movie and then have like a solo Batman and have to have a solo Wonder Woman, a solo Aquaman, like they were trying to do originally before we can even get to something like a full universe, I don't think superhero movies have that much time left in the zeitgeist, right? Like
yeah,
they'll always be around, but like there has been a shift compared to like the Endgame period where everybody was going to see superhero movies where people are not going to see them as much. So I don't know if you have that much time to do the build up to each character. So kind of being able to
yeah,
start right into it and just give us what I think is a very like accurate comic, Superman story. This kind of feels like a comic when you open it up and it just says, "Here, you're plopped in right now. Superman just lost a battle. Boom, you're going." Like
mhm,
it kind of just goes off from there and runs, and I think that is more that was needed. That's why I can't really compare it to Iron Man in that regard because Iron Man really is like the MCU got the
the
chance to do
origin,
those like
yeah.
MCU had the chance to do all those origins to build up to Avengers, but this they don't really have the time for it now. I feel like.
That's a really great point. I didn't really I've never really thought of that. Like, and I always wondered what the fatigue was centered around because like you said and I think I don't know if I'd call it necessarily like a yes, fatigue, but also I would say Marvel really dropped the bag. I mean, they really dropped the bag on it, and I think it was because they thought that they could duplicate and replicate the same kind of experience that fans had when they were watching like you said, but I think they made the mistake of going into and multiverse is always really tough just because you can pretty much say everything is moot point, like everything else doesn't matter. And I think that's where it's been like time travel has always been kind of shaky for people because like you can erase things or things can be altered. And then you could also say, well, now they just have the power to go back in time anyway to fix it. Like they're just going to rewrite it. Like, then that's where I think Dooms and them are headed. Like, I think that's where it's headed. And I think it's so difficult. Whereas I think you're right. I think James did a great job here where he just, I think he thought, you know what? People really do know Superman that are into the comics. We're not going to give the origin story. And right away, we get that from the jump. I mean, I was so, and I saw this as a as an honest critique, Jordan. People go, I felt like I started mid movie, and I was like, I think that was planned. Like, I think
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is what was planned from the get go. Is we don't really, I mean, through Jordan, I don't know much about, I don't read the comics. I don't know a whole lot about, but I know enough about Superman, like I was telling you, that I knew that he had Kryptonian parents, that their
mhm,
idea was to take over, or like that he had parents in Smallville that were much more parent like than his biological. I knew that. I knew Crypto. I knew Lex Luthor and what he was. I know Lois Lane. We know this so much. Like, same thing with like Batman and them, like the Justice League, and like you know a lot about them just because of your passings with other fans like you, and especially me with you because you are. But I think you hit it right on the head. The nail right on the head is people, they're not tired of the DC universe. They're like, most people like me, more casual, are just like, "What the hell is that? Like, what's going on over there?" Which is
right,
what
right.
I felt watching DC movies. Like, the only one I ever really got into was Batman because he was so unique in the way they present him, and it wasn't ever origin of Batman. Yes, you got Batman Begins, but like you've got more of like, here's who Batman has always been. Let me tell a story, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah, I mean, this, I think the opening crawl is all you need, right? It says, you know, like 3
Yes.
centuries ago, the first
Mhm.
superpowered beings known as metahumans appeared on Earth, ushering in
Yes.
a new era of gods and monsters. 3 decades ago, an extraterrestrial
Yep.
baby was sent in space to Earth and adopted by Kansas farmers. 3 years ago, the baby, now grown, announced himself as Superman, the most powerful metahuman of all. 3 weeks ago, Superman stopped the country of Boravia from invading Jarhampur, sparking controversy around the world. 3 hours ago, a metahuman called the Hammer of Boravia attacked Superman in the city of Metropolis. 3 minutes ago, Superman lost a battle for the first time. So, one, I like how it's just three, three, three. You know, like I
Yep.
think that is
Oh, it's great,
awesome.
yeah.
And then just like setting the stage, that gives you all the information you need to enter this story, right? Right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, because you know, then you'll see the rest of the fight with the hammer after this, right?
Yep.
Like you don't need I don't know how else you can introduce this without the crawl, I guess is
Right.
kind of what it is. Because that would be a whole other like hour of the movie, I feel like if you had
Yeah.
to do all of that stuff.
Yes. And I feel like it does do something that its counterpart in Marvel does not do as well, is catching people that are casual up on the fact of, like, when Marvel does things, they just insert, and it's like, "Here, figure it out." And it's like, for a casual, like, especially when I was watching, what was it that I was watching? It was, it was Deadpool and Wolverine. There were many times where I'm like, "What the hell was that? Like, who's that?" Like, it doesn't really do a good job of introducing. I don't need an origin, Jordan, but I need an introduction sometimes. I think
Right, to
people
a
feel
character.
that with Marvel where they're aggravated, like, you don't introduce these people at all. Whereas I have felt that with DC movies, they do a really nice job of, like, Jordan, this allows for, like, James Gunn to take this version of Superman. They could go back in time and tell the Smallville stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah,
feels
yeah.
like they could go either direction with him and tell
They could
things.
go
Whereas Marvel,
they could go
everything's
300 years
progressing forward.
ago,
Yes.
right? They could go 300 years ago and tell the first metahuman story if they wanted
Yes.
to. And he's kind of said as much, Gunn. He said this is more like Star Wars or Game of Thrones than Marvel
Yeah.
in the sense of he can pick out different time periods
Yep.
in this and tell a story. He doesn't need to stick to present day where Marvel kind of got themselves is that Iron Man announced himself as the first hero. So you can
Yep.
really only go forward. But we know that Captain America's in the past, right? And then
Right.
but he was more of a military figure. But then when it
Yep.
gets to the 90s and they're like, oh, we have to fit Captain Marvel in here.
He's
So
gotta come up, yeah.
they have to do like a background story, but
Yep.
kind of explain why she was never known to anybody because they already
Right.
set up that Iron Man was the first one. So
Yep.
this he gave himself like 300 years of time that he can tell any story if he wants to.
Yes. So kind of launching into this, I wanted to get I wanted to give my first reactions to this as I'm
Yeah.
sitting here watching this and the scrolls going across, right? And I'm picking up mid battle and just the imagery, like starting in an Antarctica, starting in his lair and understanding like he's mid battle and he's beat to hell. And then you get the introduction of crypto right away. I mean, right. I think ultimately I'm like, all right, this has a good feel to it. Like this feels, and you know what I honestly, and I don't know if this is because I know who it is, but it totally gave Guardians of the Galaxy. Like it totally gave that like you could feel its lightheartedness, but also like shit's getting real. Like this is getting real quick, and um, I just love the introduction of it, and it felt much more. And I don't know if this is kind of a DC thing or a Superman thing. It did feel a little bit more light than like sometimes Iron Man can feel. Like Iron Man, while it does have light moments, it doesn't really lean. It leans more into like who Downey is and who he was in the past, and it leans more into how he interacts with the character. This felt much more of like Superman felt upbeat. Like it feels very light in the way that it is, but also the heavy moments don't feel as heavy, I think, as maybe sometimes Marvel leans into. Like, and I know Dark Knight's totally different, but like and other DC entities will be different. But this felt, like you said, it felt very optimistic. Superman, like this is a great start. Like this is a person who just oozes positivity in a way that sometimes it can be detrimental to himself. But like also he knows there are complex things that he's going to have to deal with, and there are some. It's much more politically based and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just felt right away. I was like, man, this has a really good feel to it, and then just the beauty of that whole
Fortress.
thing, yes, of his fortress of solitude, like, coming up out of the ground. I was like, "This is so pretty." I was like, I have it on our background now. I was like, "I need a photo." And have you seen the photo, Jordan? It's like of him. It's a really small picture of him, and then it's the fortress and stuff. I was like, "I need that framed." Like, it's so cool the way
Is
that it
it
looks.
this?
Yes, that is it.
Not that this is
That
very well
would
because of the green
yes,
screen, but this is,
yes, that
from the
is
art book,
it.
which I have.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
it's
is it.
beautiful.
Yep. So right away, I was like, "This is stunning." I mean, just the way that this looks. So,
Yeah, the CG is
um,
great. This is an actual set in, that they go into. This is an actual set that they made,
it's remarkable.
which looks great. He's so good at building sets and getting like having the right team to build his sets
Yeah,
and to mix that with CG to make it, look
that's a
phenomenal.
good point. When I think back to it, though, like when I think about Guardians and what he's done before, it's that same thing. Like it feels galactic, but it feels like we're in sets, like we're in
Yes. Yep.
physical sets where so much of like Strange in them are CGI. You can see it right away. It's like, okay, that's
Right. Right. Right.
definitely a lot of CGI. And obviously with Guardians you have to do it, and sometimes with Superman you have to do it. But this felt that's a really great point. This all felt. I mean, even when they go into the
Like it was
pocket
like you could
universes,
touch
like
it. You could almost like
yeah,
feel like you could touch anything in this movie because it is
yes,
uh made on sets. I
yeah,
definitely recommend anybody that wants to read this art book. I mean, like they talk about the people that he's had working for him for like the suits and the sets, or the people that worked with him on like almost every Guardian movie onward that he's made. So like
yeah,
because one of the biggest sets he's made is probably the fortress, but also he did that nowhere set for Guardians 3 and the holiday special
yes,
that is
yep.
huge, and that feels
It's
good too,
beautiful too.
like
Yep.
it's a nice set.
Yeah.
But what you make of the Superman robots and everything here?
I don't want to keep comparing it to Marvel, but it felt very Jarvis like we were getting introduced to
Hmm.
those bots, and um, right away I was just like, I like the way they look, I like the way they interact, and you know what I like too is that they feel like people, like they really do feel like they're looking out for him, and it feels much more like a personal connection to him rather than just being robotic. And you get that at the not spoiler alert because everybody's probably seen
The
this at
end,
this point,
yeah.
but like when Greg, or is it Greg or Gregory that he
Gary,
calls him?
yeah,
Like I want to
Gary.
be called Gary. That's what it is. Like, I want to be called Gary, but it feels very personal. And again, we get a very lovely picture of Bradley Cooper, and I'm like, man, I'm feeling Guardians all over again. But yes, the whole thing, the whole setup, Jordan, it felt like a luxurious lair in the Alps somewhere. Um, and
One thing I'll say
I
too
just
is the robots are a mix of practical and CG. So
are they really?
they made those real robots, yeah. And
That's
then
awesome.
I really like that, like you said, they have that personal connection, but they almost think that they don't. Like Four,
Yeah,
or later as you know as Gary,
or
right,
yeah,
is saying,
yeah.
like, don't thank us, we won't be able to appreciate it. But then he looks at the new robot and she's like, he looked
Yeah,
at me. So like obviously they do have some sort
they
of
do.
feeling, especially that he wants to
Yes.
have a name, like
Yeah.
uh they do have some sort of feeling for him.
Yes. Um, learning that Superman has a lot of different weird powers, also floored me. Like, the
Yeah, like
whistle and
what
the
did you know of his powers?
none. I can tell you
You
the,
knew flight. Did
um
you knew the heat
I
vision?
I kn I knew Flight, and I felt like Heat Vision was like a different version of him for some reason. Like, I felt
Oh,
like
okay.
that would have been later on, like, we'd have been introduced later on. It did feel like a quick progression to all of a sudden his Heat Vision, he's just annihilating all of these, what are they, like, the war
Raptors.
robot, like
Yeah.
yeah, the raptors coming down out of the sky, and there's thousands of them, and he just all of a sudden is like, "Oh, watch this." Whereas, like, he has a real hard time fighting against, like, the hammer at the beginning, and it's like, I don't understand, like, why was it so hard? You know what I mean? But, this version of a villain, though, Jordan, for me, was very fascinating. It was almost AI-ish, almost, like he was, the master puppet. Like,
Mm.
the hammer's controlled by the moves that Lex and his that one really was like, "What?" Like, this is crazy because you know, the Marvel universe, the villains oftentimes operate in the shadows, where I feel like DC, the villains exist in the society. Like, that's what mind that's what blows my mind, is like how much you see the villains interact with civilians in DC movies compared to what you see in its counterpart. Like, the whole thing where Lex is in this tower and he's in this bridge, and like he's controlling all the action against Superman. And they all know who Lex Luthor is and how evil this man is, but they don't know what he's evil about. He's kind of like this rich bully, and Superman seems to know of where this is coming from. So it's like it's fascinating to me where we catch up with them. But that whole battle scene where he gets his ass kicked, like I was like, dang, like this is intense. And right away we get introduced to Lex Luthor, who is the actor is escaping my mind, but like
Nicholas Holt.
he is, yes, he is brilliant as Lex Luthor. I was like, man, he's got like that, you kind of, you don't root for him, but you're like, he's not like the worst of people. Like, I don't know. He's built really well, I think, in this one.
Yeah,
Um,
he originally auditioned for Superman, Nicholas Holt.
oh, did he really?
Yeah, and they said, "What would you, think about trying out for
Like,
Lex?" And he said that was actually had a thought while he was reading the script originally that he was, kind of like, that Lex would be fun to play. So,
yeah,
I think he nailed it. I mean, there's so many Lex Luthors, but he is up there along with Michael Rosenbaum from Smallville for me because
yep,
he just this is what Lex Luthor is. He hates Superman with a passion. Um and nobody really knows that he is, I would say, like evil per se at this point, right? But he is probably what they would consider a rich asshole, I would say, right? But
right,
um I don't think that he like anybody else would know that until, obviously the end of the movie they lay out all of his plans that he had done. So now
yeah,
everybody knows what he's done. But I think one thing I really like about this is he was probably like the smartest guy and was probably revered well until Superman announced himself 3 years ago.
yes, yeah,
And then, something kind of flips in him of, I mean, he may have always been evil, but like it's
right,
now, why are you able to have all of this strength just because of the sun when I am here, working my tail off to become what I've become, you
yeah.
know?
he
So I
does
thought
give
that very interesting.
he gives a little bit of Bruce Wayne vibes. Kind of the way that he is this rich person that's got a lot of money, but also it seems like the civilians aren't like keep him at arm's length kind of thing. They kind of just know him of who he is. Like he's a rich person that does a lot of things with politics, as you would see in most societies. That wouldn't be somebody you'd be like, oh, red flag, that's weird. I mean, nowadays you might, but anybody that's given a lot of money to the government, you'd be like, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of weird. But yeah, I mean, we get introduced to the international incident and conflict that's going on in Moravia. um, so in this, Jordan, so help me understand this if I'm right. So the Bravian conflict, uh, we're having Superman is framed as this benevolent force by some, but an overreaching for an agent at times. So like they kind of feel like Superman shouldn't be politically aligned, but he kind of is with based on how he interacts with the government. Is that right? Like he's aligning himself
So
to the current president?
so essentially what they're thinking, right, is the way I read it, right, is Superman is American in the sense of he lives
Mhm.
here, right? He's based in Metropolis.
Yeah.
Why is he getting involved in stopping a war over there?
Yeah.
And you have the other wrinkle of Moravia as a US ally. And Jarhanpur used to not really be an ally, but as he says in the interview with Lois, that they've changed, right? They are trying to be better. Um,
Mhm.
Now, Superman thinks of it as very simple. People were going to die, so I stopped it, right? But what Moravia is thinking is, why is a US citizen, right, interfering with us? That is almost an act of war from our ally. Why is our ally getting involved in this on the other side? So it's this very nice, complex thing that I think is really interesting when Superman has to deal with this. There was an episode of Superman and Lois, the CW show,
Mhm.
where there was a North Korea submarine that was having issues, and Superman saves them and puts them back on North Korea soil.
Okay.
And the government, who Superman worked with a lot, was like, "Why did you not bring them to us?" And he's
Mhm.
like, "I'm not doing this as an act of politics. I'm doing it because I saved the North Korean sub and put them back home. Like I'm not going to capture them, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that's what kind of Superman is. He just does. He just saves the person that's in trouble. He's not going to, like, if Jarhanpur had probably invaded Bravia, he would have done the same thing, right? If anybody
Right.
is
Yeah.
invading
That's what I
anybody,
was
he would do
thinking.
the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is so interesting about it, is because then you have to have it gets the government involved in a, well, he's always been good to us and he's been saving people, but why is he inserting himself into this stuff when he shouldn't be?
Right. Yeah, and I wondered too, like as time goes on, as we figure out what's Lex's role in this and like what his doings do to the war itself and like the conflict itself, then it becomes almost like a moral conflict of like who does he side with, because he also doesn't believe in the fact that Lex Luthor, like Boravia, seems to be using the help of because it is Boravia that's accepting the help of Lex Luthor, right, to take over. um
Yes. Yep.
okay. um, so yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, like a political conflict, but also like Superman feels like the peacekeeper amongst all conflicts across the globe, even though he's in Metropolis and he's supposed to be, this American hero, this American soldier. But also, you can see too, Jordan, though, like early on when he's having these problems, when he's not winning, when he loses his first fight, when he starts to get framed for just kind of being as as DC often has done from what I gathered, like, but also same kind of thing Spider-Man did. Like he is framed kind of as this vigilante who's kind of just doing his own thing and not really looking out for the people, but more so looking out for himself or his political beliefs and ideals, where he's able to protect himself or protect a certain entity, where he's not really looking out for the best interest of humankind. He's looking more, but then this all stems from that video.
Hmm.
And people have seen it obviously, but the video of his parents talking to him, which he used to heal himself in different instances, but it kind of breaks up at the end when his parents. This really threw me, Jordan, because I was like, I kind of knew that like his parents had sent him to take over Earth, kind of thing. But like this threw me when it was like it was basically like, no, your parents lied to you. Like this video was used to lie to you. Your parents really wanted you to come over to take over mankind on Earth. And I was like, huh, that was not where I thought that was headed. I was like, oh,
Well, that's actually some of the controversy, I'll say,
yeah,
is in most continuities, his parents send him here to do good and to just to save his life from Krypton exploding. This one is this upset some people because they think it doesn't that it's kind of slandering the Kryptonian side of him and propping up the Earth side of him. But what I will say is this has been done in comics before. It was also a big part of Smallville for the first couple seasons there, where the Jor-El's, Jor-El was kind of a dick and stuff like that. But it's, I think it's fine after having however many Superman movies we've had. What, 4, 5, 6, like 6 or 7 Superman movies to have
yeah,
a different take on things. So I liked this change. It didn't like bother me really, because now I did think originally that maybe the message would be fake. They do go out of their way to say several times this is the real part of the message. It's been verified. So I don't think they're going to back out of that now. But I do have
yeah,
questions on maybe how that will affect somebody like his cousin,
right,
who
yeah,
makes an appearance at the end. So I'm assuming, you know, we're going to get more Kryptonian background through her and her film coming out this year. So um, who knows if there's more to say about that or not? But it was a very controversial decision that people did not like, and that's one of the main criticisms I've seen of the movie.
yeah. Which I totally get, but I mean, it did. I was like, what? I was like, that floored me. Wasn't ready for that. I do like that it sets up, especially the ending. I thought it set up the ending really nicely with when they're showing him again, footage of when he says, put my parents back on, and it's his parents that took care of him in small. Like I loved that because I thought even if you had problems with and I'm not most people on the internet, I'm pretty positive about things they try and land it, and I thought they landed that pretty well where it was like, "No, like, here's actually the people that raised you, who all of your morals and values came from. Like, your
Right, right.
Kryptonian parents, none of your values or morals came from them, like, none of
Just
them."
your
You
powers. Yeah.
right. So, that's not that's where I thought they did that beautifully, which that gave me chills at the end. I was not expecting that. That was a great little a twist there. But Jordan, just over the course of the movie, I didn't really want to go scene by scene because obviously everybody's kind of seen it, but I did want to talk about certain moments. The Lois Lane and Clark, um, I feel like really that whole scene where they're in the kitchen
In the
felt,
interview.
oh yeah, felt so good, and yet also just gave so many complexities to both of the characters of like who Lois Lane is and who she serves versus who, Superman and Clark Kent serve. And like it just I don't know. And I plus I love the apartment. I was like, I need that bookshelf like yesterday. But I
Yeah.
love that they set it up this way because Jordan, I don't know how many superhero movies I've watched where every single one of them, somebody's trying to figure out their identity. Like the person they love the most or are closest to don't know their identity until,
Hmm.
obviously 2 or 3, the sequels. So I love that we're jumping in right away and Lois knows who he is. Cause at first I was kind of like, does she know? Like it seems like she knows, but like doesn't know. And then bam, I was like, oh, she knows. Like
Yeah.
this is 100% Superman talking to Lois Lane, which I thought was really great. But I mean, just kind of that relationship, like, how do you feel like she plays as Lois Lane? I forget the actress's name too. I'm bad with
Rachel
actresses'
Brosnan.
names.
Yeah.
Yes, but how did you feel about Lois Lane?
I think she is probably my favorite Lois Lane.
Oh,
She
wow.
Yeah, she nailed it. Funny story is on our podcast. We were following the news as the movie was progressing,
Yes.
and they had, I think, it down to 3 people for her. And the trades were reporting it was Rachel Brosnahan, I think Emma Mackey, and somebody else. And I was like, once that I was like, Rachel Brosnahan is her. Like I had seen her in House of Cards. Some people have seen her in the Marvelous Miss Maisel on Amazon. But like just looking at her and also just knowing how she was from what I'd seen her in, I was rooting for her to get the role. So then when it was announced that she got the role, I said, "Thank God," and kind of called it. Same thing with David Cornsweet. It was down to him. I think they mentioned Nicholas Hoult and somebody else, and I said, "I want it to be, I want it to be David Cornsweet because he looks like Superman." Like, oh my god, like, and so I kind of got all of my casting once, like, uh, that I was rooting for each
Yeah.
person that they were so I feel I take a little bit of pride in that, and then that the fact that she did kill it, I think, because she's very good in this, but it's also like this is one of the best that Lois has been written in the sense of this apartment scene here where it's like a 10-page scene in the script, which you don't get a lot in superhero movies of this like dinner date, also
Yes.
then this like interview scene
Yeah.
um that takes this long of time in the movie, right? Usually people will be like, all right, cut that and get more action in there or something. But we get this
Right.
nice scene where we get to see them all lovey, and then the table turns when she is that Pulitzer Prize winning um that Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, that she's not going to let him off easy. She's kind of showing him like, before this Clark was getting all of the Superman interviews, and
Yeah.
she's like, people are going to put that together. Also, like, it's not ethical. So she's worried about the ethics of it. And then she's showing him what a real interview would be like if Superman dropped down and interviewed with a world class reporter. And she's not going to let him off easy. This upsets him because he's like, hey, I thought this was going to be like this nice, like, foreplay interview type thing.
Yeah.
They were feeling it. It's their 3-month anniversary, right? He's made dinner for her. And he's like, yeah, I'll let you interview me. He probably thinks it's going to be this cute
Oh, he definitely did. Yep.
thing. And he gets upset because he feels like she's attacking. And even on stuff that he knows she agrees with. And she's like, I have to ask this, though. Like, this is
Yeah.
what a journalist would do. And, it ends with them both kind of walking out and their relationship kind of up in the air at that point. But I think this scene is one of the highlights of the movie, but also just I think Rachel Brosnahan really did a great job in it.
No, you hit every point. I did. I thought this was. I mean, this was one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. Just because I think you like you said, I think he thought it was going to be more lighthearted, and he gets angry by her continuing to push that boundary of like, who are you? Like, what do you stand for? And I think almost where he felt like his morals were questioned or his values were being questioned, and he was trying to play it political. But again, I think that's ultimately what he was trying to do, was just trying to play it safe, and she was not going to do that. Alrighty. Moving on to the Justice Gang, Jordan. I had questions. I was like,
Yeah.
who are these people? What is a little bit of the background? I still don't know it too much because I mean, obviously, it would have taken some looking up, but I was like, I don't know who these. I know it's Mr. Terrific, I
Hmm.
believe, right?
Yep.
And then the other two, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need Jordan to give me a better. So are these do they exist outside of, like, his world, or, like, where did they come from? Is my original question, I guess.
These are DC comic characters. So
Okay,
they're called the Justice Gang in this, but they're a stand-in for what is known in the comics as the Justice League International.
okay.
Maxwell Lord, who is played by Sean Gunn in this, at the very end when he says, the things that liberals and conservatives can agree on is that Lex Luthor
Yeah.
sucks.
Right.
Um, he is the one that funds the Justice League International in the comics, and in the movie here, it's the Justice Gang. The reason I think the name change is because the Justice League doesn't exist yet in
Okay.
here, so they needed something close to that, but not. They can't name it Justice League International if there's no Justice League of America or Justice League,
Right.
right? So I think that's why they went with Justice Gang, is to try to get the same sort of vibe. Um, Guy Gardner is the Green Lantern in this. His first appearance was in Green Lantern 59 in 1968.
Okay.
But Green Lanterns, there's multiple of them. The first one was Alan Scott back in the Justice Society days. Um, and then since then they had Hal Jordan. That's who Ryan Reynolds played in the
Right. Gotcha.
movie.
Yep.
Um, and they are part of what is called a Green Lantern Corps, which each lantern is giving a ring, and they're given a sector, that they're supposed to. They're almost like space cops, if you want to think of it
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
Um, Almost like the Nova Corps from Guardians,
Yes. Yep.
type of thing.
Yep.
But uh, each lantern gets a ring, and it creates these green constructs of light. So that's what Guy Gardner uses when he makes the oven mitts, or the thing that blocks the kaiju's face, or the thing that pokes its eye. The middle fingers
Right.
flipping off the the Baravians. And they are led by the Guardians of the Universe, which is these blue people that live on the planet of Oa. And those are the ones that kind of pick the lanterns and oversee the Green Lanterns.
Okay.
He's going to appear again. Nathan Fillion's going to appear again in the show called Lanterns, which is an HBO show that's coming out later this year, starring two of the more well-known lanterns, Jon Stewart, not the Daily Show Jon Stewart, but a different
I
Jon
was
Stewart.
excited. Yeah.
And by Hal Jordan. And he's going to be played by Kyle Chandler, actually, Hal Jordan. So a little bit of, good pedigree there with his, Friday Night Lights character and stuff. But so they're going to appear again in this, and Nathan Fillion's going to be in that show. They've said that. But essentially, all of their powers are always the same with the Green Lanterns. They just have multiple people that are considered Green Lanterns.
Yeah. I was fascinated by them just because I was like, what? When they introduced them, like, did they just like insert these people like randomly? But then he said Green Lantern. I'm like, okay, no, I know that name. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, this makes sense now. But I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was like, who are these people? Like, they just show up. Like, are they some kind? I thought they were. To be honest with you, I thought they were those people that kind of like in Batman, where they think they have powers but they don't. Like they try to help Superman, but Superman's like, no, like leave me alone. That's what I first thought was happening. But then once he started to use his powers and the little balls that he uses, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
so Mr.
different. So
Terrific is a I would say kind of like a Batman in the sense of he's a rich person that owns a company that is very, very smart, very, very smart guy, Michael Holt. His first appearance was in Spectre 54 in June 1997, but he runs a team in the comics called the Terrifics.
okay.
That team also had Metamorpho, who we'll talk about in a little bit, but
Yeah.
he is a tech genius, billionaire type guy. And Hawk Girl, there's been numerous Hawk Girls. This one is Kendra Saunders. She appeared in JSA Secret Files 1 in 1999, but there's different Hawk Girls throughout time, and stuff. So this one is just more of like the, I guess, more normal Hawk Girl. There's one that's like from Thangaria, like what is it, Thangaria, which is in space. Then there's one that's like consistently like her and her husband Carter continue to find each other. They can almost every time they die, they're reborn in another body type thing, or and they continue to find each other and find love with each other throughout like decades and centuries and stuff like that. So This one is, we believe, not that type of backstory for Kendra Saunders. So, but yeah, her powers are essentially she wields a mace and she has wings.
Yeah. Something they did really cool in this that, like, I was like, I mean, I guess I get how they do it. They have a camera strapped to their heads when they do this, but also like, or not strapped to their head, but like out in front of them when they do flying scenes. Because
Mm-hmm.
Hawkgirl and Superman fly a lot. They do a great job of showing what that looks like from the vantage point of like you were right in
Right in
front of
front.
Superman. Yeah, it's really cool. And something that I felt was really cool. In one of the final battles, I think it's Superman knocks out one of the Raptors, and like, and it he hits him in the teeth, and the teeth hit the
Oh
camera,
yeah, and
and I
hit the
was like,
camera.
"That was so cool." Like, that effect, I was like, "That was really cool."
Yeah.
But the reason why I asked you that was, like, I was like, obviously, this is setting up for characters that'll probably exist in other projects down the road as they're starting to
Mm-hmm.
kinda get into this universe, and I'm assuming that these actors, and actresses sign on for different, just like Marvel, they'll probably sign on for different years to do different movies and projects that they're working on or however they do that. But I was like, I wonder if I was like, I wonder who's going to have more of a say. And then right away, Mr. Terrific steps up in that role when he goes with Lois to find
Yeah.
out where they're hiding Superman after Superman's been framed. And Jordan, they take him to a pocket universe, which was a new concept to me, obviously, getting into this world. And we meet a character here, Metamorpho, who is fascinating. Like, I was enthralled with this and this whole build up. And then when they're taking Superman through and they're showing him the monkeys working on like the
Yeah.
different algorithms and things like that, and
That's
like
a great
tweeting at him,
reference
like,
to how Twitter and social
yes,
media is nowadays.
the monkeys up there screaming at this thing, and he's like, "Screw Superman!" Like, and then they show Crypto, and they're using Crypto to try to get as much power as possible. And then they take him to what is like this pocket universe, like Joe Goldberg type prison, where everybody's in like this glass box, and they meet Metamorpho, who Jordan is like an element. Like, what is he's like a metahuman, but like
Yeah.
he's got, like, elements that he can morph into.
So I have some fun stuff about this. So this is Rex Mason, also known as Metamorpho, the Element Man, which is what uh, Lex calls him. His first appearance goes back to The Brave and the Bold 57 in January of 1965.
Jeez.
He was dating a businessman and rich guy daughter, right? And his name is Simon Stagg. So if you notice uh when Superman gets like the message after saving and helping with the kaiju
Yeah,
on the with the Justice Gang, the message starts playing,
yeah,
and he goes away and he goes into a building called Stagg Industries. That is what
okay,
Simon Stagg owns. So there's actually a little thread
gotcha.
here with Simon Stagg and Metamorpho, but um, because he was like secretly dating Simon's daughter Sapphire, and uh, Simon didn't like that, so he kind of tried to set up this plot to kill Rex, and it ends up backfiring and makes him into Metamorpho.
Okay,
Um, Now, his son Joey is Joseph Mason. He appeared in the comics as well back in 1990, Justice League Europe. He's not typically green. He looks more like, I would say, Metamorpho, but that is the kid of Sapphire, Stag, and Rex. Um, so all that stuff kind of comes from the comics in the sense of him having a kid. Stag Industries is in this movie, but also is really related to Metamorpho. And he can just like, yeah, he can. There's different ways in the comics. At some points, he can only produce elements that are in the human body, and in some comics and in this, he can make any element that exists.
yeah,
So in this, they use him as the kryptonite, since we learned earlier
mhm,
that there's not a lot of kryptonite on the planet anymore.
yeah,
When Lex is having that meeting with the Secretary of Defense and everything, so they use him to pretty much just be kryptonite, and they're holding his son hostage to make sure that he follows through with doing this.
yeah. a brutal moment, in the Pocket universe when Lex kills, is it the bodega owner or, like, the guy
Yeah,
that
he's a
Superman
food,
has
yeah,
befriended? Yeah,
Molly.
yeah, and just, like, point blank just assassinates him, just takes him out, and it's, it was quite a scene. They made Superman look gross in that scene,
Yeah.
as he's, like, having the life sucked out of him. I was like, "Gosh, he looks like a wrinkled old man." Um, but yeah, no, I was like, "That's a really cool, person." I was like, I didn't know what he was or where he'd come from, and I was like, "I really like this." And then I was hoping he had, a future with them, but then when they do make their escape, which they eventually do make their escape, Metamorpho decides to go with, and they're breaking them all free, essentially. But with the help of Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane, they end up, and Mr. Terrific stays behind to kind of police whatever is happening, the fallout from,
Yeah, he's trying to
because
figure out how
obviously,
to, like, make sure it's stable
yeah,
or whatever.
right, and then try to close the different pocket universe because they are afraid of what actually happens, and it create, what do they call those?
A rift.
It's like a, yeah, rift in the whole, what is it, metropolis area, but also in different areas where that they've had pocket universes open in the past could cause rifts throughout the or, throughout Earth wherever they
Mhm.
exist. Um, but yeah, we get some major conflicts as, they do escape, and there's major conflicts at the end of, the movie, and some of the best battle scenes that I've seen. They were really cool. The way, especially Ultraman and Superman, which I had another question about. So Ultraman, I got really lost, and like I hadn't had the chance to watch it back twice. So like Ultraman had existed because that's how they get into his, um into the Fortitude of Sol, or, what is it
Fortress,
called?
yeah.
The, yes, is how they get into there. But like he wasn't there, like he's not the hammer, right? Like
He is, yep.
I thought it was, okay.
He was posing
Okay.
as the Hammer, yeah.
Got you. Okay. That confused me at first because like I was like, I'm very confused. Like I thought he was the hammer, and then it shows him, and I'm like, obviously there's a man underneath the suit, but then I was also really confused, like, was it the same person? So okay, that makes sense. So Ultraman and Superman are fighting, and uh Lex Luthor has cloned Superman, so he's gone to different battle scenes and picked up like
Strand of hair,
DNA off
is
of
what he
those.
said,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah, strand of hair. And he clones him. My I guess my question is that, is do you think that when this all ends, obviously Lex Luthor is, taken into custody, and obviously you probably know this, but like we're assuming he's not done, right? Like we're assuming he's got
Well,
more.
I have an answer for you. Do you want it now or later?
I was like, I'm confused, huh? Let's do later just because we'll wrap up kind of like what happens, but
But I'll
Justice
talk
Gang Jordan.
can I
Yeah,
talk a
go
little
ahead.
Ultraman then?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was confused by who
So,
Ultraman was, but yeah.
Ultraman is pretty much a mix of a couple different characters in this. So, the name Ultraman comes from the comics where it is evil Superman. So,
Okay.
he comes from what they call Earth 3, and Earth 3 is where what they're called the in they're they have a pretty much an evil Justice League, okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Uh where it is like they have a bad version of Batman called Owlman, they have Ultraman, they have uh what do they have? Superwoman, which is like Lois Lane as a Wonder Woman, Superman type thing. They have a Flash type character. They have all of these like pretty much one-on-one comparisons to the Justice League, but
Okay.
evil. It's just like a world where everything is bad. And instead of introducing Earth 3 and doing all this kind of stuff, what they've done is just use the name Ultraman and pretty much put it on Bizarro. So Bizarro in some versions is a clone of Superman that goes wrong and he is like
Okay.
really dumb. And Lex
Yeah.
makes an allusion to that saying like, "Hey, with cloning, now everything's perfect. He may even be dumber than you are if that's possible."
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
um so it's pretty much they took Bizarro and made him not speak backwards, because in some comics, Bizarro speaks like backwards, and it's really, really not something that works in movies.
Yeah.
And they, put the Earth 3 Ultraman name onto him, and
Okay.
that's how they kind of made into this version of Ultraman.
Okay. Well, then that's good because I was like, I'm so confused. I was like, I'm pretty sure that was the hammer. I'm very
And
confused.
I'm
I
sure
was
he
like,
can
okay,
come back. I'm sure he can come back as like a more accurate Bizarro if they want to, because
yeah,
he gets sent in the black hole, and you can make it where it falls into this other world Bizarro
right.
verse, or
Another
you could do stuff like
dimension.
that
Yeah,
later if you want it. But
yeah.
so far, I feel like this is our version of Bizarro.
Okay. Yeah, so we get a great scene there. We got Metropolis dividing. We've got all sorts of things happening. The global peril of the split and the rift is tearing it apart. Symbolic destruction. It's not just Metropolis that's splitting; it's genuine. Just everything going wrong in the universe. Justice Gang is taking on the invasion. Bravia's invasion force is halted there by the Justice Gang. Jordan, one of my favorite lines of the whole movie is basically Green
Superman couldn't
Lantern's like,
make it, so you got an upgrade.
well, that yeah, that was a good one. And then when at the end, when it's all said and done, and they're walking along, and Metamorpho's walking with them, and he's like, "Well, just because you think you're not part of this, really. Like this is the Justice Gang."
Right.
Like, and
You
he goes,
want
"Oh,
his ugly mug being the
yes,
face of the Justice Gang?
yeah." And he goes, "I like that name," and he goes,
You're
"Never
in.
mind, you can be you're in, you can be part of this." I was like, that was perfect. Jordan, you know who he reminded me of? The actor that played Green Lantern.
Mm-mm.
He reminds me of oh shoot, Woody Harrelson. The way I had to look it up because I was like,
I can see it.
that's not Woody Harrelson, but it's kind of like the face and the way he says his lines. I was like, that's not Woody Harrelson, is it? Like he's too big to be Woody, and he looks younger than Woody is. And I was like, I don't
Yeah.
think that's him, but it sounded like him. But of course, it's not. But yeah, I love them, and I was like, I can't wait to see if they're in more. And that's why I asked you. I was like, obviously they're going to be in more. They set them up to be in other things, I imagine. So that'll be cool that he's in a part of a Green Lantern show. Um, but Lex's defeat, you you see Jordan, something that really struck me as odd is Lex Luthor crying. I don't think I've ever seen a villain in one of these cry. I was like thinking, racking my brain, going, Thanos obviously isn't crying. I mean,
Mhm.
he has a very deep moment, but Joker would never, right? So you got the Riddler and all them. Like I don't picture any of them crying. So when Lex cries, I was like, I feel bad for him. Like I don't know why, but I feel bad for Lex Luthor, even though the dude just tried to destroy or pretty much destroyed the whole planet and is geopolitically and like he's just an awful person.
Yeah.
But yeah, that struck me as very powerful to see Lex Luthor cry.
He was on the verge of winning. He was so close, right? Like that's
Right.
got to be part of why he gets the tears welling up is
Yeah.
there's that part where Superman is getting choked by the nanites, right?
Yes.
And it
Yep.
shows him, and he's like laughing, he's smiling, he's grinning. He's like,
Yeah.
finally, I've 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 done it. I've won.
Right.
And he's giving his whole speech to uh Superman about like, I know I'm envious, like I'm not dim, but like you are showing us that we are weak because we cannot do the things you do.
Yeah.
And he sees that as like a threat for humanity, but as a threat for himself as well. If he's being replaced as that alpha male
Yeah.
guy by somebody who is bestowed great power from just the sun and his the way his body makes up itself. So he, it's this calling in him that he is being supplanted, but he is also on the verge of winning. He thinks brains beats brawn, right? And it does, but Superman flips that around on him because Luther gives him this, like I said, he might be even dumber than you are. So that gets into Superman's head, and he says, if I can get Crypto here and knock out the cameras that are watching this, Lex will not be able to relay the information, and since I am smarter than Ultraman, I will be victorious. He will no longer have
Yeah.
somebody telling him what move to do because he studied me. He'll lose all connection to that, and I can just fight this guy and win. And so even then, like Lex kind of gives him the key to his own defeat, by just being too cocky and being so close on the verge of greatness, and then get a little bit of tears welling up in the eye there. You also get Crypto doing a little bit of Hulk
Yes.
Loki from the Avengers here and thrashing him around.
Yes. Um, Crypto again showing up at all the right times. I was really confused when he was like, they were asking him like, I forget who was asking him kind of like the who Crypto was and like the origin of the dog, like where'd the dog come from? He's kind of like an
Lois, he says, "You
adopted.
have a dog?"
Yeah. Yeah, and he's like kind of like an adopted situation. I was really confused by that line because he's like,
Mhm.
I was like, why is he not owning up to this dog? And then it all makes sense at the end. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Um, but just a couple things like as we kind of wrap it up, at least the movie part of it. They, Superman prevails. And Jordan, like I said, we have a moment where Lex is ushered off into I'm assuming a federal agent's car, but with his
Yeah.
proximity and the closeness of I'm assuming is that the department, is that the who is the guy at the end? Is that's not the president, that's the um
So it's the Secretary of Defense
hmm,
speaking to
thank you.
Rick Flag Sr., which is played by Frank
Yes.
Grillo, who was in
Okay.
the MCU as well. He was Crossbones in the Winter Soldier
So
and everything.
they give me bad vibes. Like they gave me very bad vibes of like they're in something deeper here. Um which I feel like sets up another when you have another Superman movie. Like it kind of felt like something's up. Like they're very the way that he smiles at the end and then but also it feels like Lex Luthor isn't quite done yet either. He's taken away by federal agents. That gives me kind of like the he might go to federal prison but used as some kind of bait or tactic for the government to kind of lure Superman back because I feel like Superman has gone out of his bounds a little bit here, and the department is kind of like, we're gonna have to back you off a little bit. Like I feel like there's some conflict heading in that direction. At least that's the way I felt leaving the movie. Like not leaving the movie, but like when I finished watching, I was like, all
Mhm.
right, so that's where they're kind of setting up a future of like Lex Luthor will be back. Like if we had a Will Returns and Superman 2 or
Yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
might be, we would have got Lex Luthor and Department of the whatever I keep trying to say.
They're
Um,
actually called Argus. So that is
okay.
the Argus is what Rick Flag Sr. is a part of, and they are he stands for different things throughout the comics, but it's pretty much like a meta human task force to
Okay.
kind of make sure that they're almost like a shield
Yes.
from MCU is essentially kind of what they
Okay.
are.
Okay. So that would give me positive vibes then. If you
Well, I
explain
mean,
them as
Shield was overrun by Hydra, so
yeah,
you're
that's
not,
true. That's true.
you're in. I would
In the
say,
ballpark somewhere.
yeah, I have a I have a good bit for the end here where I'll say what's
Yeah.
next, and we can kind of
Okay.
go through where some of these
What we're
characters
feeling.
may have appeared and what is to come up in the next few films and shows and stuff. But
Okay.
um,
Yeah, we get at the end, we get him back in his fortress of solitude, and he is being healed again. Um, and we get a wonderful nod to a line that was said earlier in the movie, and you and I talked
mhm.
about this through text. I thought it was brilliant, where he said that Lois Lane's like, I didn't strike you kind of a punk rock kind of guy. And he goes, well, Superman is punk rock. Like it's hip to be. It's kind of like that. It's hip to be Superman. Like, he's not really. He's a very humble person because of his background. Like I love his parents. Like
Yeah,
his true parents in my heart, Jonathan and Martha
mom,
Kent.
pa.
Yes, I feel like they are perfect. I love them so much. I want a whole. I know you're gonna say go watch Smallville then, but I want a whole show of Mom
Yeah,
Pocket.
that's what I was.
Um, but yes, a great ending because you've got you've got four saying I want to be called Greg or Gary.
Gary.
Sorry, I keep doing that. And so like Superman's like, sure, yeah, whatever. He's watching his family scenes. He's watching all of his home films back when, because he's like, show me my parents again, and it's a great touch. And then punk rocker starts playing, a great nod to him saying that he wanted to be punk rock, and Superman saying, I am punk rock, watch me, which
Yeah.
I thought was brilliant. James Gunn, you are a magician with music, as we have seen in your other projects with Marvel. But Jordan, what do you think of that last scene? Because we get a introduction of a certain character, and I'll kind of leave it at that because you can kind of spoil it for me. I know who it is. I did have to look it up. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, I'm pretty sure
You
this is
couldn't
who it
tell just
is,
from
but
it being a girl version with the
no, like
Superman
I
outfit?
I wanted to be like, I wanted to be like, okay, like it's definitely Supergirl, right? Like I'm not like there's not another
Right, right.
lineage of like this is Wonder Girl superhuman something. Like,
Right,
I
right.
was like, I'm pretty sure that's Supergirl, but I don't know. So yeah, but we get Supergirl and the real owner of crypto,
Yeah.
from what we gather. So
Yeah, so just a couple things, you have the punk rocker song, which is like you said, a nice little touch. It made me laugh in the theaters, but in like a
yeah,
nice happy chuckle as I was
yeah,
probably holding back tears because
yeah,
it was, you have that moment where she says, you think like I judge everybody, I expect the worst of everybody. You
yes,
see the humanity in everybody and that it's beautiful. And he says maybe that's the real punk rock, which is a nice statement its own of like, if you think punk rock is against the grain of the normal, like most people are cynical, especially nowadays,
yes,
right?
yeah,
So having
yeah.
somebody like see the good in everybody is like the punk rock of today
Very rare.
because
Yeah,
it's like going against the grain. And
yep,
then you have that song that's perfect teed up there with, Superman. One you're expecting when they say like, "Do you want to see the footage of your parents?" You're expecting them to say like, "No," because you're led to believe it's going to be
yep,
the Kryptonian ones. And then so you think he's going to be like, "No, play the parents of my play a footage of my parents." But like Gary's already made
yeah,
that change. He's already made the change.
yep,
It's Jonathan and Martha that he's watching, and uh, which is also ties well to the scene at the farm when he talks to Jonathan and
yeah,
Jonathan says, parents aren't for telling their children who they're supposed to be. We're here to give you the tools and help you make fools of yourself all on your own.
yeah,
Your choices, your actions are what makes you who you are, and I couldn't be more proud of who you are. He's going to say who you are, but then Martha has to cut in
yes,
with the
yep,
with the stuff going on in Jarimpur.
yeah.
So just that's probably my favorite scene is the Jonathan and Clark
Oh, it's a
scene.
s yeah, it's top tier, yep,
And but having that tie, you not only tie the punk rocker scene, you tie the Jonathan and Clark scene into this
yes,
last scene,
yep,
and it makes me like tear up every time now. Um,
especially because you have a
and
kid now.
especially now I have a kid, so I'm trying to think, yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
supposed to tell him who he is. I'm supposed to just give him the
yeah,
tools.
yeah.
But
That gave me chills, and I'm not even landing, so.
But yeah, so and then you have Supergirl who comes in and she says she is here to get her dog. And all of this is actually, I would say, like what would typically be in the MCU a post-credit scene, but it actually
Yes,
I think
100%.
it's better than a post-credit
Better
scene
here. Yep,
because what I will say is I've seen some people say this is like unnecessary setup, but I think it resolves the issue of who Crypto's
it
dog
does.
is.
Yeah, like I alluded to, I was so confused when he
Yeah,
kept
you're
going,
confused
just like
until she comes
yeah,
in and
like, "What?"
she's laughing as he's throwing her down. He's like, "This is
Yeah.
why he has behavioral issues," right? Like,
Yes,
th- you know,
yes.
in most iterations, Crypto is Superman's dog, but
Okay. I
with the
thought so, I was like, I'm
story,
pretty sure he was yeah.
with the story that is coming up for Supergirl's movie later this year, it makes more sense because it's adapting a comic. It makes more
Mhm.
sense for her to be Crypto's owner. So,
Yes.
um, I'll talk about that in what's next, I guess. But like
Yeah.
that is it makes sense for it to be her dog.
Yep. Um, I think you said it all perfectly to kinda wrap that up, the end of the movie. We do get, post-credit scenes. We got one right in the middle of the credits of Superman and Krypto looking down on Earth,
From the
from
moon,
space.
yeah.
Yeah, I was like, that was really cool, and it was no speaking, and, no, it was just them,
Yeah.
looking down on Earth,
It's
and
actually
then
it's a allusion to a comic panel from All-Star Superman
okay,
as well.
that
So
makes
it's a
sense.
nice
That's cool.
little nod to that, but yeah.
Yeah. It was beautiful. I mean, it looked so realistic, like they were literally on the moon.
Mhm.
And then we get a end credit scene, and I like what they're doing here, Jordan. I like that. I think if you're definitely probably coming out of this having seen Marvel. Everybody listening to this has seen all the Marvel stuff, so you're used to what Marvel's end credits look like. But Superman's are so like this one's really cool, where he's sitting there looking at a building with Mister Terrific. 'Cause Mister
It's
Terrific, I'm
uneven.
assuming Jordan, yeah, had tried to fix the building, and Superman's like he's having such a hard time because, Superman
It's
feels
from
definitely
entering
like
in so it's from entering in the code when he stopped the
yeah,
rift, and the rift
yeah,
goes right back together, but it's not perfect,
right,
and that's
yeah,
what Superman is noticing, and, Terrific's like, "What, you
yeah,
want me to, like, redo this?"
yeah. Superman's like, "Not everything has to be perfect, I guess."
Yeah.
Sure, whatever, leave it. It's such a good scene because you could just see Mr. Terrific like, "You gotta be shitting me." Like, "Really?
And
This
then
is what you're gonna"
Superman being like, "I
Yeah.
I can be such a jerk sometimes."
Yes. I love that because Mr. Terrific walks away, and then you're left with Superman just standing there like, "God, I can be a jerk sometimes." Just the wholeness of Superman, Jordan, I again, like you and I've talked about, I think that's what draws me so much to Spider-Man, and I have not Jordan, I'm now obsessed with Superman, because of how much I've loved just the pureness of what Spider-Man stands for, and now I've got this other character. Now I'm interested in Smallville, now I wanna see it all. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I remember texting you going, "Man, I've heard so many good things about Superman, that I'm excited to launch into this." And Jordan, I'm even more excited that I'm getting into a new world and a new realm, a new universe, and learning all of these things because I don't know anything really outside of what I've mentioned before with the DCU. So I wanted to ask you, what's next? Like it seems like it's setting up such a perfect. Obviously, we've got Supergirl coming out in June, particularly around somebody's birthday.
Right on it,
Um,
yeah.
I was gonna say,
I'm really
particularly on the
excited.
day that Jordan was birthed. Not not in the future, but Jordan. Happy birthday to Jordan! Supergirl's going to come out in theaters. I'm assuming you're going to see that opening night slash day, whatever happens up there.
I'm deciding if I wanna do the 25th, which would be the
Yeah,
the Thursday showing,
yeah.
or if I
They
wanna
always
do it
do
on
that
my
before.
actual birthday. That's what I'm gonna
Yeah,
figure out, so.
yeah. So what's next, Jordan? I saw the trailer. I watched the trailer before we jumped on here. The line that really stood out to me, and what I think we get with Supergirl, and I'm excited about this to learn more, is she says the line that Lois uses as well, where she says something similar to the line effects of like,
Yeah,
Superman is all about the moral and the good in people. I see the truth in
yeah.
people. And I was like, ooh, it's like that's enticing.
Yeah, so Supergirl is really set up in this movie. This story that they're adapting, it's based off a comic called Woman of Tomorrow. And in the story that they're adapting, it's a really recent comic. I haven't read it yet. I'm saving it for before the movie. We're going to do it on the show, and I figured
Yeah.
I'd just wait until we're doing our build up to read it.
Mhm.
My friend Chris read it. A lot of people have really spoke highly of this comic, but it's mentioned in this movie that she goes to red sun planets because of their metabolism. She can't get
Yeah,
drunk
you
on
get
Earth.
drunk. Yeah.
So that's how she like it's her 21st birthday in the comic. In the movie, it's gonna be her 23rd.
Oh, right.
And she is celebrating by getting drunk on red planets and kind of gets caught in this whirlwind adventure while she's out in space.
Okay.
So people very Guardians vibes because obviously it's taking place on in space and everything. But um, Supergirl's movie is going to take more place off Earth. Crypto is kind of like her dog in that comic, or like is a companion of hers in the story, which is why it makes sense for her to be Crypto's owner in this universe, is because they're using this
Mhm.
story. Um, Without it being like, I guess, Clark being like, "Yeah, take my dog," like, it just makes sense to
Yeah,
streamline it,
yeah.
make it
It does.
her
Yeah.
dog. Um, So yeah, we have Supergirl coming up next. That's most likely the next thing coming out because Lanterns is scheduled for late summer, so I'm assuming that's going to be August.
Mhm.
That's when Peacemaker season 2 premiered last year, so I'm assuming it's going to be around there. So this is where it's a little tricky. There is, Peacemaker appeared in this movie, John Cena, when Superman flips out at Lex and the footage
Yeah.
shows up on the news, and
Yep.
uh, Peacemaker's there. So when James was fired from Marvel between Guardians 2 and 3, DC immediately went in and scooped him up, like, because they were smart, and they're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
these are just joke tweets. Like, we're going to scoop up the guy who has two of the biggest hits for Marvel, and we're
Yeah.
gonna give him
Right.
whatever he wants to do."
As they should. Yeah.
And what he wanted to do was the Suicide Squad. 2021's The
Okay.
Suicide Squad. So if you liked this, and if you like Guardians, I would say you should watch The Suicide Squad because it is actually one of my favorite superhero movies. Um, it is a rated R uh,
Mhm.
Guardians, essentially, right? In that sense, like, so while that was originally made for the last universe that was around, they've kind of worked it as being part of this one. So none of the big heroes make an appearance in that movie. It's very loosely connected um, to the previous universe that it kind of works as it could work in this universe. So
Yeah.
you could watch it, you could not watch it. Everything James has said is you can watch or not watch whatever you want in this universe and it'll still make sense. So that's his goal. But the Suicide Squad then gave birth to a show called Peacemaker, and it's a really great TV show. Season 1 did take place in the alternate universe that they called the DCEU, but at the beginning of Peacemaker season 2, they explain it away as being in this universe by just editing a couple scenes in the previously on segment,
Ah,
and it
yeah.
works very, very well that now it just enters this universe. And the
Oh, that's
Justice
cool.
Gang just appeared in the premiere of that episode as well. So
Oh, wow.
Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Maxwell Lord appeared in that season. A couple of Lex Luthor's goons appear in Peacemaker season 2, as the whole fallout is about this Metropolis rift and kind of Rick Flag Sr. trying to track down Peacemaker, who also has some sort of tech like this. So they're worried that
Okay.
it's going to happen again. So that's why they're going after him. So that stuff has kind of happened, and it does kind of set up what is next. But like I said, James said you can watch it or not watch it. I recommend watching it to anybody listening just because those are very good James Gunn projects. He nails the music in all of them like he usually does. He lands the character and the heart, all that kind of stuff
Mhm.
is really great. What actually kicked off the DCU was a cartoon called Creature Commandos, which is it follows Rick Flag Sr. from, in this movie, played
Mhm.
by Frank Grillo, but it's a cartoon and it has him kind of assembling a team of creatures to take down a foreign entity type thing.
Okay.
Um, it is kind of loosely connected to the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, but it kind of you can kind of see the wiggle, like if you watch it, anybody listening on, again, you don't have to, in the sense of like it doesn't explain anything that's going
Continuity.
on,
Yeah.
but like it's just fun to see some of these characters pop up again in different things. So that's kind of how you get kind of Rick Flag Senior's background.
Okay.
Um, but what's next? They start filming in 2 months. It's essentially a Superman sequel. It's not called Superman 2. It is
Man of
called Man
Tomorrow?
of Tomorrow,
Mm.
and it is a Lex Luthor Superman team up movie where they will have to work together to defeat Brainiac, one of Superman's big villains. Um, they are getting ready to film, like I said, so that's coming out next year. I'm very excited for it because one of my favorite parts of this movie is Lex and Superman. And knowing that they are going to have another interaction and that they are going
Yeah.
to continue to butt heads and have to team up, be forced to
Yeah.
team up, is something that I think is really interesting. And I assume the Justice Gang will be in it because there's rumors it's basing itself off of a comic called Panic in the Sky.
Okay.
And it's a 1992 comic where Brainiac is trying to do this, and like Superman teams up with Lex Luthor Jr. It's a whole other story. It's not regular Lex Luthor, but he has to
Yeah.
team up with like Lex, and he teams up with like the Justice League, and this Green Lantern Guy Gardner is in it, and it just seems like it is going to probably not be like a full on adaptation, but just some basis, some themes, some stuff like that that they will kind of take from that in the sense of I assume he's going to team up with the Justice Gang and Lex to try to take on Brainiac together. So maybe Supergirl, right? We don't really know, but that is what's next. There's also Clayface coming out in September 11th, our other friend's birthday.
I was gonna say, yeah.
They love
I've got
releasing on our
3 friends
birthdays
that
right
have
now.
that birthday. Yeah, what's going on? There better be one
Uh,
on January 13th, or I'm gonna
I
be really
not
upset.
usually a movie coming out in January. I'm
That's
sorry,
offensive.
but it's a rated R body horror, $40 million movie that is about the Batman villain Clayface. So that
Yeah,
is coming up this year as well. Again, that might be for people that like horror. I'm gonna go see it just because it's connected to everything, but it's
yeah,
gonna be its own little isolated story, not really interacting with
yeah.
this. But my big excitement is for so long we've had so much focus on Batman that it's nice having Superman kick it off. We have
Mhm.
Supergirl this year, and then we have an immediate follow up with Man of Tomorrow next year. So 3 years
Yeah,
in a row of the Super family hitting the screen is very exciting.
yeah. Feels very Iron Man-esque because that's kind of what it feels Iron Man did. Was around at the beginning quite a bit, and then they kinda shift
Yeah,
from him.
Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3,
Yep,
Avengers, Civil
yep,
War.
yep. There's so where are we with, just one other question because I saw this on here. So Batman, it says the Batman 2. Is
Mhm.
that so the original Batman that took place before Gunn started,
Yeah.
was that the case? Okay, so this would be so it'll be a sequel to that, but it'll start to be in this realm of, like,
It's
it'll
not
be
gonna be
where we
connected.
kinda okay.
It's not gonna be
I
the
didn't
guy
know if
who's
that was
directing that did not want it to be part of a connected
gotcha.
universe.
Okay.
So James Gunn is working on their own separate Batman for this, but obviously he doesn't want to release that around the
Gotcha.
Batman part 2. So he will be waiting.
I lied to you, and I'd forgotten that this existed. I was a huge Teen Titans fan. Huge Teen Titans
Oh,
fan.
like the cartoon?
And I saw that being rumored or was going to be part of this.
Yeah,
Is that still a go?
we don't know too much about it in the sense of
Yeah.
they did have a writer working on it.
Yeah.
She also wrote the Supergirl movie,
Okay.
but they have her prioritizing a Wonder Woman movie right now. So,
Okay.
I think Titans is on the back burner a bit, but
Yeah.
we'll see. I assume that look, everything is also up in the air with the whole Netflix, Paramount, WB stuff
Yeah,
going
that's
on.
true.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just happy with what we're getting so
Yeah.
far.
I did wonder, like, as time has gone on, like, this would be a perfect addition, and I just I'd be okay with this just because of what Netflix has done in the past. But I don't know. I think Netflix would be dying to have a because now Daredevil belongs to Disney, so it's like,
Mhm.
that was their superhero. I feel like Netflix has got a hole there. But like you said, I think there is a bit of a fatigue because I think Marvel tried to just it was just too much, um, and are starting to find their footing again because I think they're understanding what people want. I think developing characters in these where they could connect, but don't necessarily have to connect to everybody. I think that was it was the benefit and the cool thing about what we saw with the whole Endgame saga
Mhm.
was that this all connected, and I'm glad that James has seemed to take a different approach in the fact that, like, these can exist together, but they don't necessarily have to, which I really enjoy. Like, I feel like that's a really good start for, Jordan, to be honest with you, I did not like any movie I ever saw with involving DC, really. I always was like, "Oh, this is awful." Like, this isn't even close to what they're doing over there. Um, where now I really do, like, watching this, and I'm excited to, because 'cause I'll go back and watch Peacemaker, just because I've heard some good things about it. But, like, DC's starting to finally, I feel, and I know you see a lot more positive in some of the DC movies that have existed before, but, like, this is an entry point for a lot of us, especially myself. Like, this is an entry point into a universe where I did feel it, like, it was lacking good storytelling and good,
Mhm.
as much as Marvel, and I always hate to compare that because people are like, well, the DC versus Marvel kind of thing, but I feel like they both can coexist, and they both can be great storytellers, which is what we need. Because I think DC being good, Jordan, forces Marvel to be good too.
Yeah.
So, like, I think it's good competition to have DC now going, oh, okay, we got it, and with James Gunn under direct, like, I just feel like this is a match made in heaven. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, no, it's I've always liked I would say some of the DC stuff, right? As a
Yeah,
DC fan, but like I never thought the live action movies were really nailing it the way that they could be.
yeah,
Um, Once James Gunn was announced, I had utmost faith in it. And
yeah,
then, you know, seeing this movie, which I usually put I've kind of put a rule on not immediately ranking stuff as soon as it comes out. So
yes,
like I said, I had some friends that say like this is top 3, top 5 superhero
yep,
movie, blah blah. I couldn't say that right away, but I made a rule to like wait a year out to try to prevent recency bias. And I had to change that rule to 6 months because this movie has entered my top 10 of the comic book movies. Um, it's uh, I've rewatched it more than some of the other movies that I either had in there or that was liking, and it's just this. Even if it all falls apart with the Netflix deal, with all this stuff, I'm just happy I have this movie. The post credit scenes don't set up anything that's not going to happen. Um,
yep,
In
yep.
fact, that last scene with Terrific and Superman was
Made it
in the
Marvel
middle of the
themselves.
movie, and
Yes.
James just cut it and put it at the end. Like that's all it was.
Yep.
So he didn't like, I guess, design a end credit scene. He just was like, "Oh, we'll figure it out in post, I guess." But we don't have to worry about this like not being tied up. It is nice knowing that we're getting Supergirl and that we're getting Man of Tomorrow. Um, but still each prod he James says he doesn't really like end credit scenes that set up stuff that he then is forced to have to
Yes,
do later.
answers to,
So
yeah.
I don't think we're going to see a lot of those type of end credit scenes in this universe, which means if it all falls apart, if it all dies, we're not sitting here like, remember when they set up that thing that never happened? It's just,
That's a good point. That's a really
you
good
know,
point.
it, this is what it is. So
Yeah.
I really enjoy this. So it's up there in the top 10 for me, and I'm sure it'll continue to get higher and higher as I rewatch it. But
Yes. Um, but overall, I was really impressed. I know obviously now you've said that it's in your top 10. I would say the same. I would have to go back and look at, where it falls in the top 10, but it's pretty high up there. I mean, you know, I think it hits a lot of and ticks a lot of boxes. I think it has a little bit of a different feel than what I'm usually feeling off of these superhero movies. I actually do think it's a little bit more upbeat when it in its upbeat moments. At times, it feels very comic booky in the way they interact with each other, which I actually like. I know some people have a hard time with that and the way that Superman kind of goes about his business, but I was like, man, I didn't really have any like critiques of it. Like, it felt good. I was gonna have a critique if like Mr. Terrific hadn't really kind of wedged his way in with Lois, because it's like, why did we introduce these three all of a sudden? And then
right,
they
right,
kind
right.
of just like, what? No, I give up. I'd be like, what the hell was that? But no, I enjoyed the introduction of them. Has me looking forward to shows that they're going to be in or movies they're going to be in going forward as their own existence. But like you said, I think the biggest takeaway for me is this is such a great start, a beautiful start to something different, and hopefully it continues on with the same kind of direction which it's taking. Because I mean, I would give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. Really, it really hit home with me, and I feel like it it builds for a really exciting sequel with Man of Tomorrow, and it did have that feel where Lex Luthor was not done in this story in this timeline. So I'm really excited about the future of DC. But Jordan, anything else before we kind of head
I
out?
have a couple questions for you and just little
Yeah,
notes that I wanted to
yeah.
say before we head out. Did you, you asked me in a text message, how do they not know Clark and Superman
Oh yeah,
are
yeah.
did you
The
catch the
glasses.
line that the
It
hypno
was the glasses.
glasses?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the glasses
That is
because he.
something in one of the comic issues. This was actually probably this is gonna sound really dumb, Logan, okay? This is probably the most controversial thing that came out of this movie.
The
On
glasses.
fan Yes, people were like, "This is so dumb. Why do they have to explain it?" Because in the like I said, in some iterations, it's just because of like him portraying himself so differently, right? Like he's a little
Yeah,
bit more hunched over as
yeah.
Clark, very different hairstyle,
A little bit more nerdy.
bumbling,
Yeah.
yeah, nerdy, compared to Superman standing upright. And you see it in the interview scene too, when he's talking
He
as
gets that
Clark,
like. Yeah.
and then the interview starts and he leans forward and he's just like Miss Lane, right? He's
Yeah,
got a little different
he does.
cadence. It's a little,
Yeah.
a very good switch there. But I'll tell you, that's what pissed off a lot of the hardcore Superman
Of
fans
course it did.
is the hypno glasses,
That makes
which
sense.
is wild. But um oh, what you were saying about the lightness and stuff, I do think it has a lot of hope, but I think it has like this great bit of a great balance between dark, because
It
this
does.
got darker than I thought it would, in the sense
Yeah.
of Molly getting shot.
That was yeah, that took a turn quick. I was like, "Damn."
But
Like, that was.
Lex has a line and a delivery from Nicholas Hoult that makes me laugh every time after that, where he's like, "I thought that would last longer."
Yes. Yeah, basically, like, well, that didn't go as planned after he just slaughtered some dude
Yeah,
at point
Russian
blank.
roulette style.
I was
Um,
like it was very Joker, Jordan. It felt very, like,
yeah,
gun in mouth Joker, like or with the pool stick. I was like, "Damn, that had some Jokerness to him." I was like, "That's pretty cool."
yeah. So you have that kind of dark stuff going on. Crypto gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
um, but then you also have like the light. I mean, the baby Joey stuff is kind of dark.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but you even get the payoff with Molly with the newspaper that Clark
Yep.
wrote an article about, calling him like the real
He's a
hero and
hero.
stuff.
Yeah.
So like it is so that's really great. And the fact that he was so willing to sacrifice himself by saying like don't tell him anything, Superman. Like I don't have a family. I don't like
Yeah.
don't give anything away.
Oh, yeah,
Protect
absolutely.
yourself,
Yep.
So just a really good mix between light and dark. There's a bit where obviously don't throw stuff at your spouse, but like Lex throwing the pencils at Eve, and then
Yeah.
everybody's cleaning it up
Yep.
and they put it back on the thing, and he's just so pissed he knocks it right back off for them to pick up
Yeah.
again, is a nice little touch. I really like Alex as well. So,
I was gonna say we didn't even talk about her or, what's his name from
and
the paper?
Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah, Jimmy Olsen, which both extremely well acted. I
Yeah.
love that part where they're in the alleyway and Jimmy's just like, "Leave me alone, you crazy lady."
Yeah.
So, that was good. But anything else?
I think that may have been everything I wanted
Yeah.
to say.
That was all good. No, this was a lot of fun. I was like, I need to have Jordan on here because I'm gonna watch. I'm watching a couple movies that you love so well, so much. In the next couple of weeks, I'll be watching Back to the Future soon.
Nice.
Um, but I thought this would be a lot of fun just because I know this is well after Superman has come out and most people are preparing themselves for Supergirl. But I thought it would be fun to get on here and just chat it up because I don't know a whole lot about Superman and Jordan knows a lot. So I was like, this will be a good balance. That's what I said on one of my other podcast episodes is like we'll be talking some Marvel, DC, that kind of stuff, comic book. And I was like, it was the Star Wars one. And I was like, Jordan is much more into those universes that I am. So it's nice to have somebody to bounce them off because otherwise sometimes I sound like I'm crazy and don't know what I'm talking about. But this was all good. I really did. I enjoyed the beginning of this and I can't wait to launch more into Superman. But yeah, Jordan, just last thoughts or anything, or let us know where people can find your stuff.
Yeah, at Supes and Sabers, all of my social media. We did a whole build up to Superman last year called Superman Sundays, where you can find that playlist on our YouTube. It has us talking about certain comic runs that are instrumental to, like Superman for All Seasons, which is my favorite. All Star Superman, which was a big inspiration to this. Um, we even did a fun like build your own Superman movie where you take like the fortress from a movie or
Oh,
show
that's
and
fun.
take the Pa Kent from what iteration you like, or
Yeah.
what actor of Superman or Clark you like the most, all that kind of stuff. And we did that with a guest. And then we also ranked our live action Superman suits, all that kind of good stuff. I just guest on a podcast called Dingus Den on the YouTube channel there. They have a series called Before the Cape where they're watching Smallville. And I was just on there for the season 1 finale discussion um, a couple weeks ago. So you can also find that there. They're doing every Saturday at 9 o'clock a live stream where they talk about 1 to 2 episodes of Smallville. As there, two of them are watching it for the first time, and one of them has watched it a couple times. So that was very fun to be a part of. Sticking with the Superman stuff, you and I have been doing Night of the Seven Kingdoms on Screen Society and on Supes and Savers. And I will have some Wonder Man coverage coming soon with our friend Jack, coming up on Supes and Sabers. So got a lot of good stuff coming here on the podcast.
Yeah, anything Soups and Sabers, definitely check out Jordan's. We're underneath the same media brand. We're Logjam Media, and you'll find Jordan and I all sorts of podcasts, mostly heavily Jordan's. I think I have 3 or 4 on there, but I've been jumping on in different random areas to help out Jordan on other podcasts. So hopefully covering more of that. He will be much more of the Soups and Sabers guys. I'll do shows and I've told people I'll do Marvel, we'll do DC, and we'll do Star Wars as well, Game of Thrones. But most of our focus is a lot on just top television too. I know Jordan, you've got a podcast that also does the same thing, but right now, for instance, it's a little bit different than what Jordan's doing. We're doing Shrinking, which is season 3, has just released its first episode. We're also covering The Pit over on HBO Max. And it is currently in its second season. So I just recorded some episodes on that, and then I jumped on here with Jordan. So I've been talking all day, and I'll probably end the podcast now before I lose all wind to be able to talk anymore. So again, thanks Jordan for jumping on. It was a lot of fun talking Superman with you. I think that's going to do it for us. You can find us at the Screen Society Podcast over on Instagram and X. On X, we are Screen, and then Society is shortened. I shortened it to SOC Pod. And then on Instagram, we are the Screen Society Pod 0. I guess the regular just Screen Society hashtag was taken. But you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, review. Helps people find us in the show. Check out Jordan's Soups and Sabers. Make sure to rate and like his stuff. It helps people find his channel as well. But again, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time on the Screen Society Podcast.